the book itself is the discovery. I mean, the book itself is the answer for your question, because only when the book is finished, then I can start to think, what's going on here? What happened? Why did she do this? So, or why did he do this? And so yes, I agree. They take risks, but I believe that, you know, sometimes if part of the way is difficult or terrible, it still doesn't mean that the journey was not worth taking. For me, it was very clear that I need the politics out, but slowly, with the years, and maybe the turning point was when I got injured in this terror attack. I started to feel more open, to open more windows in my books for the outer world, and of course it's not a decision, it comes with the characters. You know, since I was a very little child, I was always fascinated by relationships in families. First of all, in my own family, but I remember when I was invited to friends, to girlfriends, to sleep over, I was like a little spy, listening to every conversation, trying to follow every gesture. So, I mean, it's very authentic. It was not a matter of decision. Since I remember myself, I was fascinated by relationship in the family. And, well, we can all agree that those relationships they shape all our future and all our relationship in the future.
Hello everybody, my name is Grzegorz Jankowicz and this is another episode of the series of conversations called The Nature of the Future. With writers, philosophers, sometimes scientists, psychologists, I talk about how what has happened in the past or what is happening now affects and will affect our lives now and in the future. Today my guest is Zeruyą Shalev, an Israeli writer, author of several novels that have been translated into Polish. Recently, Pain and Fate were published in our country. We're going to talk about how literature affects our emotions and to what extent it can be helpful in the process of overcoming trauma. Hello, Zeruyą.
Hello.
I'm very glad that you accepted my invitation. Let me go straight into questions. Iris, the main character of your novel Pain, was wounded in a bomb attack. Already at the beginning of the novel, the narrator talks about a theme that particularly interests me, the possibility of forgetting a traumatic event. Iris either remembers the bomb attack from 10 years ago and begins to feel the pain, or maybe she hasn't forgotten it at all, but just suppressed the pain for some time. Is it possible, Zeruyą, to forget such a traumatic event?
I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. But you know, there are so many layers of remembering, and I think for Iris, it's quite obvious that the trauma was so huge. It was so terribly painful that she couldn't handle the pain. And she couldn't handle it the way it can be cured. So after 10 years, it just came back suddenly, and she doesn't know where it comes from, and she doesn't know what to do with it.
You know, I had this thought that maybe when we try to forget about such painful experiences from the past, we actually do very harmful things to ourselves. Because forgetting can temporarily neutralize the pain. Our effort to forget can temporarily neutralize the pain. But eventually, it can expose us to even greater dangers, don't you think?
Yes, I completely agree with you. Because when we cannot handle with the pain, we can develop all kinds of dissociations, and then we found ourselves completely disconnected from what happened to us. And if we are disconnected from pain, then I'm afraid we will be disconnected from happiness too. You know, it's very dangerous to disconnect. But you know, throughout the book, Iris finds her own ways to deal with pain, because it is always so individual.
And what are her ways to deal with the pain, to accept the pain, to overcome this traumatic event and be happier, be free from this overwhelming experience?
Well, it's a long story, as we know, because I wrote a whole book about it. But I think that Iris realizes that this trauma is like covering a deeper trauma, which covers a deeper trauma. And I think her meeting with this young boy whom she loved so much and abandoned her, it allows her to revive, like, also the trauma and the pain, and to see it in a different perspective by this kind of repetition, which is also a kind of a cure.
You know, trauma from the past is only one of her experiences, but her life consists of other problems. Her marriage is far from happy. In the past, as you said, she was abandoned by a man she loved and who suddenly reappears in her orbit. She's not happy about her daughter's relationship with an older man. A whole bunch of different problems. Are all these situations and events just randomly present in her life? Or are they somehow related, connected, and mutually determining each other? What triggers what? What evokes what?
Well, I believe that everything is connected and nothing is random, especially in literature. I'm not so sure about life. But in writing, in my novels, everything has to be connected. And you know, I don't know much about Buddhism, but this term of interconnectedness, which every move, everything we do is has huge influence on our environment. I really see it this way, especially in the family, where we are all dependent on each other and connected to each other, and it makes everything much more extreme, this interconnectedness.
Let me ask you about your last novel, Fate. Rachel, the character of this novel, was abandoned by her husband many years ago. At the beginning of the novel, she returns with her memories, to those events from the past. And after he left, she went to his mother's home where he was staying, but the mother did not let her in. When we meet her, when we find out who she is, she accuses herself of not trying to forcibly go inside this house. She accuses herself of acting foolishly, like the countryman in Kafka's text, in Kafka's short story, the man who stood in front of the gate of the law. I'm absolutely certain that each of us has such a situation in our life. What stopped her then? What force stops us in such situations?
There are so many powers that can stop us. It can be fear. It can be some intuitive, completely intuitive feeling. It can be many reasons. But actually, you can really call it fate. I mean, this power that stopped us is, at least in this book called Fate, that I try to ask many questions about fate. So, yes, this is what stopped us, what stopped her. And I agree with you, each one of us. I have plenty memories of, things that I should have done, I didn't do. And of course, sometimes we all feel it's tragic, like we made tragic mistakes and we cannot change it anymore. But, later in the book, in Fate, I quote Rabbi Nachman from Breslav, and he says that mistakes make the world move forward. So I don't know if I agree, but it's kind of comforting.
Atara, the daughter of Rachel's first husband, wants to understand the words spoken by her father on his deathbed, that he loved all his life only Rachel, only Rachela. What does Atara need this knowledge for? Does she want to understand her father more? Is this the way she wants to help herself, if only to work through her grief for him? Or by dealing with the past, by searching for his first wife, does she want to escape from the present, which overwhelms her too much?
Well, this episode where when Atara hears for the first time this way about Rachel, about the first wife of her husband, is very moving and dramatic for her, because it's the first time that her father talks to her tenderly. When he shows, it's the first time that she feels that she felt loved by him, and then she realizes that he thinks she's Rachel, that he's not talking to her but to someone else that he loved, and it is such a shock for her, and she immediately feels that she cannot continue her life without finding out who is this Rachel, who is this first wife, and what made her father the man he was, what made him the father he was. I think, first of all, she wants to understand him. She wants to know him better. And then I think that in the depth of her heart, she wants to forgive him, because he was quite a terrible father to her. And she feels that this mysterious woman, she can give her some keys, she can give her some answers, and help her to know who he was. And it becomes kind of obsession. I mean, she cannot stop looking for her. And when she finds her, of course, things are getting more complicated, as always in my novels.
Even if someone has not read your novels and listens to our conversation, this person can actually understand quickly that you are mainly interested in family relationships. This is your topic. This is the most important theme of your novels. Why is this what you focus on? The relationships between members of the family or a few families?
You know, since I was a very little child, I was always fascinated by relationships in families. First of all, in my own family, but I remember when I was invited to friends, to girlfriends, to sleep over, I was like a little spy, listening to every conversation, trying to follow every gesture. So, I mean, it's very authentic. It was not a matter of decision. Since I remember myself, I was fascinated by relationship in the family. And well, we can all agree that those relationships they shape all our future and all our relationship in the future that we cultivate in the future later. So I'm always attracted to the beginning, to where it all started.
The decisions your characters sometimes make seem to be downright crazy. These people are ready to abandon their existing lives in pursuit of some goal, something. They take risks, not being sure that what will happen will be good for them. Actually, it often isn't good for them. What pushes them to do this? What makes them brave enough or crazy enough to risk everything, to abandon everything and search for something else?
Well, it's a very good question. I don't know if my answer will be will be as precise, because you know, usually my characters, they take their own decisions. I mean, maybe I just have to say a few words about the process of writing, which is, at least in my case, there are many ways, many writers, many ways of inspiration, but in my case, I give a lot of freedom to myself and to my characters, and I mainly listen to them, and many of the sentences, paragraphs, even pages are written in a very, very fluent way, like from inside, and I don't plan what I'm writing, and I don't know what I'm writing, and only later I read it and I realize what's going on. So I'm only the writer, which means that my characters, they have their own will, they have their own power, and I have to respect it, not to control it too much, and I really try to listen to them. And I feel that each one of them has something to explore, and they don't know in the beginning, and I don't know better than them, usually. There are exceptions, of course, but I feel that my role is to accompany them and to let them go with their crazy decisions. And the book itself is the discovery. I mean, the book itself is the answer for your question, because only when the book is finished, then I can start to think, what's going on here? What happened? Why did she do this? Or why did he do this? And so yes, I agree. They take risks, but I believe that, sometimes if part of the way is difficult or terrible, it still doesn't mean that the journey was not worth taking. So I believe that sometimes you have to do something very extreme in order to go back to be more balanced or to learn something. So this is what I let them do, and hope they will survive it.
You once said that writing, literature, is not a therapy for you, for yourself, but this is a therapy for your characters. What does it mean? If you give them, the characters, freedom to act like they want, to make their own decisions and mistakes, how do you help them to overcome traumas, to get along with some relationships, to deal with difficult situations in their life and the pain caused by these situations?
Yes, it's true that writing for me is not therapeutic, and writing is too demanding, I think, to be therapeutic. It's a pleasure, but it's difficult. It's very, it takes a lot of strength. So maybe it's a bit more like physiotherapy than like therapy. But for the characters, yes, sometimes I really enjoy this feeling of being their kind of therapist. Maybe because I wanted to be a therapist, and I had quite a traumatic experience as a soldier in the Israeli army. I was like a therapist in the army, and it was really difficult for me. I mean, I felt that it almost broke my heart to meet the soldiers, to hear their stories. I was crying. It was really hard for me to help. So then I realized that I should only take responsibility on literary characters, which is also not easy, as you see. So yes, I feel in a way like a kind of a therapist. I try to follow them. I try to accompany them. Sometimes I ask them questions, and I'm very empathetic. I think it's very important in therapy. Sometimes I'm so empathetic that I can start crying in the middle of writing, and a few times my children came home and they found me crying, and they were so scared. They thought that something very bad happened. And then I said, no, it's just the woman in the book. She's so miserable. And I remember my daughter asked me, so, but you're the writer. I mean, make her less miserable. You have the power to make her happy. And maybe my answer to her is relevant, that I cannot make any shortcuts for my literary characters, and I can only accompany them, and from time to time maybe raise some questions. And I do believe, and I think you can see it in all my novels, that pain is not necessarily the end of the story. So by experience this process, I try to make my characters go through an emotional process of kind of understanding, developing maybe. And for me, it's very important, the internal process of my characters. So by the end of, it's a never-ending process, but there is a point where I feel that they see things differently now, and then I feel more confident to leave them.
And can we, the readers, your readers, benefit from this therapeutic aspect of your novels? What do you expect from us? What do you wish for your readers?
It's my main wish, really, as a writer, that my readers will benefit from it, and sometimes I hear from readers all over the world that they felt less lonely when they read my books, or that they felt that they identified with the characters so much, like I was writing about them. And I think that this intimacy that I try to create in my novels, I hope it creates intimacy with the reader in its own world, in its own life, his own or her own life. And I think that by this feeling of intimacy, I can try to touch my readers' lives. And this is what I hope, to try their life, to try to touch their lives, to touch their hearts. And since my books deal with this process of overcoming difficulties, there is always some crisis, and I believe in crisis. I believe in the force of crisis to develop. So in this way, maybe I hope the readers, while following the crisis and the way that the characters feel or handle it, I think it can be helpful for. I can only hope. I hope very much that it can be helpful for some readers as well.
I'm sure that it is. I'm absolutely certain that it is. Let's get back to examples from your novels. Yara, the protagonist of the novel called Love Life, gets into an affair with her father's friend to get out of her marriage. Why can't she free herself from this unsatisfying relationship in another way? Why does she need this affair to go further?
Well, I believe the story of Yara in Love Life is much deeper than moving out from boring marriages. I think that Yara, I didn't know it in the beginning, but Yara has a mission. She's determined by the past. She's determined by by the secrets between her father and her mother and this old man that she's falling in love with, and this huge adventure of her, it's actually a way to liberate herself from this inheritance, from this from the stories that affected her so much without even knowing why, and this obsessive of her, this erotic obsession of her, it seems like completely destructive act. I remember when when the book was published in Israel, I was just walking in the streets and people used to shout at me. You know, Israelis are very outspoken, very direct. So they used to stop me in the street and to ask and to shout at me, "What's wrong with this, with Yara? Why did she leave her nice and for this old ugly man? Is she crazy? What's wrong with her? Why is she doing it?" And it happened to me like day after day for a long time, because the book was quite popular. Many people read it, but were angry at it, and sometimes, of course, at me. And I tried to explain that this was her way to release herself, and sometimes we cannot be choosy, and I personally believe it was the right thing for her, even though it seemed like a terrible, destructive mistake. So, and yes, I always beg my readers not to be judgmental. I think it's so wrong for literature to, you know, to judge the characters, kind of moral judgment. I don't recommend it at all, and I never do it. Not when I read and not when I write.
In a different novel called Husband and Wife, you show how the change in physical state, the paralysis of the body that Udi, the husband, experiences, affects the relationship. This experience becomes too heavy for Nama, the wife. She feels as if the whole situation completely shattered her soul. I read this novel as a story of transformation. Udi transforms into someone else through paralysis. This again causes Nama to undergo a metamorphosis, and their marriage also changes. I have this feeling that in your books, pain has a transformative force, that, so to speak, the pain creates new people and a new reality for them. It creates new people out of people they were in the past. Would you agree with this interpretation?
Completely, yes. Yes. Well, you know, I was always more attracted to unhappy families than to the happy ones, if they exist. I don't know, and of course all this research about unhappy families, if I can call it a research, it's observing all the time. I think it can show us again and again, not always in life, but still it can show us all the transformations, as you said, that can be created from pain, from diseases, from unexpected changes. There are so many opportunities on the one hand, and so many fears on the other hand, and but still, this is, first of all, this is life. Unfortunately, we cannot escape from pain. So if it exists anyway, writing about it is for me, it's fascinating. Writing about pain in relationship and the way it creates all kinds of transformations.
Let me ask you a few questions, technical questions, about the form of your writing. You have moved from first person to third person narrative, from stylistic flow to a more structured form. What's the reason of this transition?
Well, as I told you before, many times they are not. I don't have reasons. It comes like this. Writing for me is so natural and so authentic, and that I don't plan. I never ask myself, will I write this book in first person or in third person? It comes like this. It's not that I cannot change from time to time or check, but usually I try to accept the voice that arrives. And if it in the first novels, the voices arrived in first person, and it was very natural for me. I never questioned it because I felt it's the right thing for me. It's intense and intimate, and this is what I'm looking for intimacy. So it fits the plot, it fits the characters. And then I think it was my fourth novel. Well, I don't remember, but suddenly I started a new novel, and with three different voices in third generation. In third person, and I was really happy when I started to write in third person, because it was new and it was refreshing, and I felt this is the right way for this kind of novel, because I could realize it will be a bit different. But of course, I was afraid to lose the intimacy. Third person allows to be a bit far away, and I prefer the intimacy. So it was a bit frightening at the beginning, but it was a very it was interesting experience for me. And since then, it's the third person. But I can tell you very fresh secret that in the novel that I just started a few weeks ago, some sentences come up in first person narrative and some of them in third person narrative. So I realized that it is not final yet, and I'm waiting to see what will catch me, what will feel more.
And how about the present tense? You seem to be you seem to feel comfortable when you write in present tense. What's the reason for that?
Yes, the present tense is very important for me. I feel, first of all, it creates a feeling of urgency and rush, which I always try to create in my novels. But second of all, I feel that it fits the process of writing, because the book is happening now while I'm writing it. So, I mean, I discover what I'm writing in present tense while I'm writing it. So it fits the way I write.
You come from a literary family. Your father, Mordechai, was a literary critic. Your cousin, Meir, was a novelist. And his father, Yitzhak, was a poet. Did this literary environment have any influence on you? And did you feel that you had to get out of the circle of this family to write in your own way?
Well, of course, it had a lot of influence. I have to mention my brother too, Raja Shehadeh. He's a novelist and a mathematician. So there is one more in the family. Yes, I guess we have it in our genes, actually. It's genetic, I suppose. But yes, of course, I was influenced. I had kind of a literary childhood, I can say, because my father used to read us for bedtime stories. He used to read us the best literature, like Iliad and Odyssey, and even he used to read us Kafka stories, like the story that you mentioned before about the man from the country. So my father read it to us when we were children. So I was surrounded by books and by literature, and it was, of course, it was wonderful. But on the other hand, having a father who is a literary critic, when you are, I was small, but I was writing all the time, so it's not really recommended. Sometimes I felt it's a bit too much, and he was so critical. But the writing itself came in such an authentic way that I don't think it was because of some influence. I mean, I started to write when I was 6 years old, when I just learned the alphabet, and writing was natural, just almost as breathing. I remember this essay of Kafka, that the writer is like, I forgot the name of the animal. Is like the animal that dig in the ground to build a home for itself. So I felt like I'm building my little home made of words, and it was my safe place, the place where I felt comfortable. And of course, I mean, as a child, I didn't compare myself to others. Some of them started to write later. So no, I don't think I had to find my own, to be far away from them in order to get out of this circle. I had my own path from the beginning, and I felt comfortable with it. And yes, this is how it started, and this is how it went on and on, in a very authentic and natural way, without making decisions like I want to become a writer, or just writing.
But at a certain point, at the beginning of your literary adventure, you also worked as an editor. And I had this thought yesterday when I was thinking about questions for you. I had this thought that an editor is something of a therapist for a book, for a text, because her duty, her goal is to make this text, this book better. Do you agree with this? And what are your memories from this period of time when you worked as an editor?
Of course, I agree. I think it's a great idea. I never saw it this way, but you're very right. There is something therapeutic, and the manuscript, the book is still kind of premature, and the work is to make it better, to make it deeper, to let it grow. It's a bit like motherhood. Writing is also a bit like motherhood, but we can discuss it in our next conversation. So yes, editing was wonderful for me at the beginning. I felt like I was so happy when after many years, when I was studying Bible in the university, and I didn't know exactly what I'm going to do with it or what I'm going to do with my life. When I reached the publishing house and I started to edit, I was thrilled, because it's such a creative work, and as you said, kind of therapeutic work, also for the writer. You know, the editor sometimes has to be the therapist of the writer, not only of the book, but it's connected, of course. So yes, I have beautiful memories from those years. I was an editor for about 15 years, I think, and it was always a great adventure, and also a lot of fun. But I have to say that with the years, I started to feel that being a good editor, it demands to be so involved with the books of others, so deeply involved. I almost know them by heart when I was editing the books. So, and I started to feel a bit frustrated that I work so much as an editor, and then I don't have time or even enough space in my mind to my own writing. So slowly, I started to change the perspective, first of all, and to write more and to edit less, until I stopped completely.
In your first novels, you were focused almost exclusively on the emotional aspects of love or family relationships. Later, the political context began to come into play as well. Do you think that a writer today can afford to ignore politics? Is it even possible to ignore political context of our life, of our reality, when one writes?
Yes, of course. I think that a writer should be free, and he should be free to choose what he writes about. He should be free to choose what interests him or her, and I think there are many ways to be involved. You don't necessarily have to write about politics if you want to be involved. There are so many ways, and I can share with you my own personal experience as a writer who lives in a very political country. And in the beginning of my career, when I wrote my first, second, even third novel, I was so determined about not letting politics enter my novels. I mean, it was so important to me, so clear to me that it was like a rebellion, because I felt my country controls my life and influences my life in so many ways, and I don't want to let her take my writing too. I felt like I want to defend my writing from politics. I want to defend it from this terrible violence and conflicts, and to be concentrate in the inner world. And it was I remember for many journalists, especially outside of Israel, it was really strange. Like, how can you live in Israel? How can you be an Israeli writer and don't write about politics? And I got used to many political interpretations of my novels, because it was hard for people to accept that it is not political. Like in Husband and Wife, I remember some critics says that the husband is the Jews and the wife is the Palestinians, and it's a symbol of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So for me, it was very clear that I need the politics out. But slowly, with the years, and maybe the turning point was when I got injured in this terror attack. I started to feel more open, to open more windows in my books for the outer world, and of course it's not a decision. It comes with the characters. For example, in my last novel, Fate, I was completely surprised when this character of Rachel entered the book, and I realized how political she is. I realized that she is a woman so fanatic and so political, and I was even afraid that it will be too difficult for me to deal with her, but I accepted it, and because of her, I started my most political novel, because when it comes from the personality, then I can accept it. I can accept it in this individual way, when my character, when for her political is personal, then it becomes like this for me. And this is how I can write about politics.
Zeruya, thank you very much for this inspiring conversation. I brought to the studio your last novel, the Polish translation of your last novel, Fate. It's beautifully published. I highly recommend this book to all our listeners and viewers. One of your best, although I have to say that I could say this about each of your novels. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you.